Hi, everyone. This is Matt,
Hi, I'm Jess.
and we're here from App State's Counseling Center to provide you with a mindfulness virtual workshop. It's part of our larger series on healthy emotion and life skills. Before we get started, we have a couple of quick pieces of informed consent to get out of the way. One is this and other quick access virtual workshops through the Counseling Center are intended to be psychoeducational in nature and not designed to provide mental health treatment or any type of emergency response. We encourage you to check out our website, counseling.appstate.edu, or give the Counseling Center a call to learn more about our mental health treatment options if you're a current App State student. And if you are experiencing a mental health emergency, like active suicidal thoughts, please visit our website to read about emergency resources or call your local emergency responders. Finally, this workshop may be recorded and shared with our YouTube account or other online venues. If you are having an emergency, you can check out our website. The emergency tab up at the top will have some resources and information for you. So our objectives today with our mindfulness virtual workshop are first to define mindfulness. We'll discuss ways to practice important mindfulness skills. We're going to introduce the concept of non-judgmentalness as well as effectiveness, which are really key facets of mindfulness. And finally, we'll talk a little bit more about where you can get some more information. So first up, we want to really talk about mindfulness and why mindfulness is important. And we like this video because it describes mindfulness as a sort of superpower. We'll also include a link to the video below if you'd like to see it.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road, screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you, rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friends, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, who's chasing you? But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you, and now all of us do it, and if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribed for you. Let me just close by saying, mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to render your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. Nonetheless, this is a superpower and one that is accessible by you immediately.
So, what is mindfulness? And we can talk about this in a few different ways. But mindfulness is an awareness of the present moment. Mindfulness allows you to be in touch with your body and your thoughts at the same time, and kind of, as in the video, make choices about what your actions are going to be. Mindfulness of your thoughts involves taking a non-judgmental stance, meaning you're not evaluating your experience. You're simply becoming aware of it. And mindfulness, while it's important, it doesn't mean being present 24/7, 100% of the time, but it's a useful tool that you can keep in your toolbox. So there are many different ways to practice mindfulness, and today we'll talk about a few of them and kind of walk you through what some of those might look like. But mindfulness really can be used throughout your day. One prominent mindfulness exercise is called grounding, and we can walk you through just a few ways to get more connected in your present moment. So using your body and your senses, your body awareness, there's an exercise called 5-4-3-2-1. And that involves tapping into your sight, your sense of touch, your sense of hearing, your sense of smell and taste. So you can look around you and take in 5 things that you see, 4 things that you might feel, 3 things that you might hear, 2 that you might smell, and 1 that you might taste. So for me right now, in the room that I'm sitting in, I can see my aloe plant, some flowers. I can see the sunshine out a window. I see a favorite postcard that somebody sent me, and I see some neon Post-its. For the 4 things that I can feel my sweater. I can feel my body being supported on the chair beneath me. I can feel my glasses on the bridge of my nose, and I can feel that my hair tie is actually a little bit too tight. And now that I've tapped in, I'm going to be aware of that and adjust it. 3 things that I can hear the fan running in the room behind me. I can hear some birds chirping outside, and I can become mindful of the sound of my voice and really tap in and hear that. 2 things that I can smell, this morning's coffee, and if I ventured over towards those flowers, I could smell them too. And 1 thing that I can taste, for me, it would probably be the coffee again. Now with this exercise, you might not always have flowers or essential oils or something to smell. You may not have something to taste, but regardless, it's a nice way to walk through your senses and kind of tap in to see what it is that you can be aware of in all of your 5 senses. And it can help you become a little bit more present in your body and in the room. And you can do this throughout your day. Just check in as you go. Maybe as you make breakfast, you're being mindful of your senses, or as you're completing your chores. And it can also be really helpful to take a screen break. Put down your phone, maybe take off your headphones, and a nice way to tap in. Another way to be mindful is through meditation, as the video said. And meditation comes in many different forms, such as body scans or maybe a guided visualization. But today we're just going to talk about breathing a little bit. So I'll lead you through a very, very short experience focused on breath. And the first step of that is really becoming comfortable in your seat. Finding a comfortable position for your body where you feel well supported by whatever surface is beneath you. Closing your eyes if you feel comfortable, or maybe just using a soft gaze or looking downward. Tapping into your body and what you're feeling in your body in this moment. And taking a long breath in and a long breath out. No need to rush your pace of breathing here. Adopt a pattern that feels comfortable for you, but continue to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. As you do this, pay attention to what it feels like to take a breath in, whether it's through your nose or mouth. And what does it feel like to release that air and to exhale? Pay attention to your chest and your lungs, your abdomen, how it expands and how it releases as you exhale. Take a few more deep breaths, noticing what it's like to breathe in and out, pause through your day, and tap into what your body's feeling. 2 more breaths. Let's make them maybe the deepest breaths you're going to take today. One more. Take your time, but remind yourself of the space that you're in. Become aware of the space around you. Maybe wiggling your toes or your fingers, paying attention to some things you can hear. You can slowly open your eyes if they were closed, or move your gaze up if you were looking down. Kind of come back into this room and see if you feel different, or maybe you were just very mindful of your previous experience. And take with you any of these positive feelings that you may have had today, or even just the practice of tapping into your body and becoming aware of what those breaths felt like. So thank you all for joining me in that. And that's just a quick example of another mindfulness exercise, a meditation focused on breathing. And if you stick with us through this series, we're going to continue to show you different types of mindfulness practices and meditation exercises that can help you as well.
So we hope by this point you can see mindfulness is useful and immediately provides some benefit. It's going to be important for us to delve into when we're being mindful, what does it look like and what's important? And a really key facet of mindfulness is non-judgmentalness. So take a second to think about the answer to this question. In your life, who is the person you are most often judging? There's an obvious answer here. For most people, it is yourself. You're most likely the object of your own criticism. And oftentimes there's two types of judgments we apply to ourselves, others, in various situations. One is discrimination. So this is answering the question of, does something fit the facts, the reality of the situation, or does it meet some required standards? The second type of judgments we make are evaluative in nature. This is when we're deciding if something is good or bad, valuable or not. Does it meet something that we'd like it to have? Not a requirement, but something desirable. You can think about someone like a jeweler as someone who makes both of these types of judgments. First, a jeweler might look at a gemstone and decide whether or not it is a diamond. Does it have the physical properties needed to define it as a diamond? That's a discrimination. Then a jeweler might evaluate the diamond. Is it good or bad? Is it high or low quality? Is this something that would make for a nice piece of jewelry? That's evaluative in nature. So now that we know what judgment looks like, what about non-judgmentalness? This is accurately describing the reality of our present situation without the evaluative component. So we're still keeping that discriminative element, but we're lessening up on the evaluation we might be doing. Why practice in this way? Why would we want to make this kind of switch to reducing evaluative judgment? It often leads to improved relationships both with ourselves and with other people around us as we practice over time. And it's going to help improve our emotional experience. It might take some of the weight off of our shoulders by removing some of the non-essential criticism or stress that we had throughout the day by critiquing ourselves. So we talked a little bit about non-judgmentalness. Another really core facet of mindfulness is called effectiveness. Effectiveness at its heart is doing what works to achieve our goals. It's not doing what we think is right or wrong, good or bad, dealing with a situation that's fair or unfair. It requires us knowing what our objective is in order to achieve it. I know that's kind of broad, but it can be really important because it's hard to reach for important goals, to reduce our suffering, to reduce distress, or to increase our well-being without utilizing effectiveness. Maybe it feels really good in a moment to prove a point, to know that you're right, but that's kind of a short-term game. Sometimes it might be that by proving our point, we're actually missing out on our goal. We're not meeting what we'd like to long-term. Let's take a look at a couple of different examples of how this might come into play with effectiveness. So let's say you are a really hard worker, you're the hardest worker in your office, and you believe you deserve a raise, you're entitled to it for sure. And you also think that your supervisor, your boss, should notice that you deserve that raise, and that they should provide you with a raise without you having to ask for it. So in this case, the individual who's the employee is maybe sacrificing effectiveness. They're not asking for a raise because they think they're right. They think they're entitled to one and they deserve one, and their boss should notice. But maybe the boss doesn't notice. The boss is busy, isn't in the mindset to hand out raises without people asking for them. So as a result, because that employee is stuck in that position of I'm right and this is what I deserve, they're not likely to be effective and meet their objective of getting a raise. Another example is, let's say you made a reservation at a restaurant, and when you get there, the hostess doesn't have the reservation listed. It hasn't been written down. It got lost in the fold somewhere. So you start yelling at the hostess, why is my reservation not here? This must be a mistake. I need to be seated. Again, maybe you definitely made that call earlier in the day. The reservation, you confirmed it and everything, and it's not there now. You may be right, and you may be letting that anger help sort of fuel that idea of I need to prove this point, but it doesn't seem as likely to get you the actual table. Imagine you're the hostess. Are you more likely to accommodate someone who's yelling at you or someone who's doing their best to work with you through an unfortunate situation? So again, when we think about effectiveness, what's our goal? In our first example, it's to get a raise. In the second example, it's to get a table at dinner. What would be our best course of action to meet those objectives? It's likely going to be a little bit different than what it would be to prove a point. So we want to keep our goal in mind when we're trying to be mindful through different situations throughout the day. You may have encountered other examples throughout your day-to-day life, or maybe you've got some upcoming examples of things that might happen in the future that might be useful to think about through an effectiveness lens. Keep this in mind as you go throughout your day. When we're thinking about effectiveness, it requires that we react to the actual reality of the situation, not our imagination, not what we think the situation should be like. If you're on the highway and there's a slow car in the left lane in front of you, it should be going faster. Left lane is the passing lane. You shouldn't be stuck in that lane. But the reality of the situation in this case is that you are. This is the position that you're in currently. Honking, tailgating, they don't change the situation itself. What would change is for you to move over, get around the car. We can't change some aspects of our environment. And in this case, our goal is to just continue our drive safely. Another example is, let's say you're in a class with students both inside and outside of a major. Obviously, the students in that major are going to have more background information and may have a little bit of a leg up in the class, and they may affect the curve. It might not feel fair if you're one of those students who's not in the major. It might feel like that class is now harder or more challenging as a result. But again, maybe it's built into the syllabus. That's how the class is run. That's the reality of the situation we find ourselves in. And by knowing the situation might not be the most fair, doesn't change it. As a result, sometimes when we're thinking about effectiveness, it requires us to sacrifice a principle of ours, or something we hold dear, in order to achieve an important goal. It's not that we're giving up. It's not that we are saying, oh, this is, I can't do this. We're just admitting that being right is getting in the way of meeting our needs. So we're putting aside this idea of I'm in the right to make sure we get what we want. It's really important to note that not every principle should be sacrificed in every situation. Sometimes the cost is too high. It will require us to sacrifice a principle that's too near and dear. An example here might be in that class, the only way you're going to be able to do well in it is to cheat on an exam. The class is just too hard otherwise. Obviously, for a lot of people, that might be a compromise that's too hard to make. That would have too many lasting negative consequences, even if we end up getting a higher grade in the class. So it's really important that we're weighing cost and benefit, and we're thinking these decisions through before we make them. So putting it all together, when we're thinking about applying mindfulness, we've got some concepts. We've talked a little bit about ways we can practice it day to day. We'd like for you to think about ways that you can include some of the skills you've learned today in your day-to-day experience. Maybe it's a daily grounding activity, or setting an alarm on your phone to meditate for 5 minutes a day. Maybe it's incorporating non-judgmentalness and effectiveness as you make decisions and navigate situations in your everyday life. Think about a plan that might work for you as a way to extend the work you're doing here. We encourage you to check out the Counseling Center's website for helpful links and handouts. We hope to have some up soon that correspond with this workshop, so you're able to put together your own practice plan. And check out some of our future virtual heals workshops for more helpful skills. Thank you for coming today. Next week, we'll be talking about emotion regulation. So we're going to be building off of the skills we learned today in our next workshop. We hope to see you then.
Thank you.